Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Brent. I'm the host for Canadians with Disabilities and Their Allies. And today I have Kenzie joining on to the show and from Stopgap Ottawa. Hello, Kenzie. Welcome to the show. It's a great pleasure to have you on.
Hey, Brent. Thank you very much for having me. It's great to be here.
It's a great pleasure having you on, and great discussions that we'll be having going forward, everybody. Kenzie is going to be talking about legislated poverty and ODSP, the fiasco that's going on and with the ODSP and rates across the country. It's definitely a hot topic, and there's lots more to talk about. Of course, then, moving forward with action plans, right? And I think that's the key thing too, is what we want to accomplish is what can we do as a group, as the disability community within Canada, what can we do going forward of holding the politicians accountable for legislated poverty, and it needs to end. And that kind of leads into the discussion that I'm going to have with you. What's your view on all what's going on with the rates and all the excuses that are happening within Ontario ODSP and all that stuff, and of course we'll get into the other topic of MAID if you want to talk about that.
Well, I can sum it up in one word. It's disgraceful. So yeah, Canada, and I'm going to try to be as broad as I can because I don't want to just speak on Ontario because I know you're not in Ontario. But, I think regardless of the province, we have to keep in mind constantly that yes, this is legislated poverty. It's not hindsight. It's not, unknown. It's not something that we've been forgotten. This is legislated poverty. People are making this decision, and they're making it all across the country to keep people in legislated poverty. And I'm going to have a little disclaimer. I'm going to disclose, I did this last night as well, and I'm going to do it today just so everybody knows where I'm coming from. I am not a social assistance receiver. I work online. Well, I have my full-time job that I work at as a social worker, but poverty in general, disabled poverty, has been something that I've been concerned about. And just seeing it get worse and worse over the pandemic, it's something that I've decided to be very vocal about and use my blue Twitter check, my verified account with Stopgap Ottawa to be vocal about that. So I want to make that clear from the beginning. So I speak for people or for the cause, but I'm not representing I'm actually not trying to represent anybody. So I'm just trying to again use my connections and my Twitter status, verified status, to augment this issue. So I just wanted to get that out of the way. I started this journey with advocacy for ODSP in Ontario a little over 2 years ago, and it was thanks to the pandemic. If you can thank the pandemic for anything, it's no traffic, less traffic, and bringing inequality to people's attention. There's still a lot of work to be done, as you all know. Bringing it to people's attention and actually getting people to do something about it and actually creating change are very different things. And it's a very slow process. And I talked a little bit more last night about the process, so I don't want to repeat myself in that way, but we talked a little bit about tips and tricks and how to sort of gain more attention, specifically in regards to getting media to report issues a little bit more. But if I talk a little bit more generally, and maybe a little more political, it's really tough because to know exactly how to go about managing this. The level of despair that I see on Twitter and the stories that people tell are really hard to hear. And honestly, there are days when I don't want to deal with it. And I admit that that's a very privileged place for me to be, because I can just turn off Twitter and forget about it. But also hearing all these stories, you're realizing that you're holding people's stories in your hand, and it becomes a very humbling and very delicate kind of matter. But getting those stories out there has been really challenging. And getting people to listen, getting people to understand that poverty is not something, legislated poverty is not right. It's not a human right, actually. It goes against human rights, which is really frustrating when people have tried to engage the United Nations or the Ontario Committee of Human Rights, and not much is done about it. It's pretty amazing where the UN can tell Canada that they're treating their disabled very poorly and that it is a human rights issue, but then where's the power to actually change things? Who actually makes that change? Yeah, it's great that they've issued statements to the government and told them this, but so what? Who holds the government accountable? Who tells them that you have to change this or else? Because there doesn't seem to be an or else. And oftentimes, when people are in power, if they're not made to change something, why would they change something? And so that's kind of frustrating. Like I said, we've been sort of working on this. When I say we, I mean me and a group of other people that I sort of got together. But the community in general, and they've been working on the community in general. The disabled community is working at this before I came along, of course. But the group the ODS poverty group that I sort of got together, we had been working on this since the pandemic, so a little over 2 years. And some days it just feels like we haven't gotten anywhere. Like, what have we done, and then people keep saying, nothing happens, it's going to happen, nothing's going to change, no one's going to do anything, nobody cares, I need change now. And trying to get that out to the public, to the media, just the general public, trying to get that message out that there's a cost to waiting as well, and not just a monetary cost, but there's a physical cost to the people actually waiting. And that's a hard pill to swallow, because I think as a disabled person, you are told pretty frequently in life to be patient. You're told to be patient with regards to accessibility, with regards to equality, with regards to services that you need. All these things, be patient, I've seen this number of times on the internet where people are saying, it feels like everybody else is getting serviced first before me. And I really can understand that, and that resonates with me, because I think that's very much how I feel. When you have, and CERB is a good example of that, where not only CERB, but all these different communities have been given some help during the pandemic, and the disabled community was just given some help. They were kind of the last ones to be given help, and it was not everybody, and really it was like a drop in the bucket. It's like having owing $10,000 and somebody giving you a quarter. Are we supposed to be thankful for that? So, when it comes to the federal government and this benefit that is supposed to be coming at some point, you really have to wonder, and I know the disabled community wonders, but you really have to wonder what the end game is. I don't think I have to tell any disabled person that there is mistrust in Carla Qualtrough. I think that that's something that we all know. We know the name and we know what to think of her. Regardless, I really have to wonder though what the government is thinking. And I know a lot of people will say, well, they're thinking, that if they wait long enough, people are going to die and then they won't have to actually put this out, put out the benefit. Or, they want everybody working, or they want them all to do MAID so that they don't have to pay them. And I can completely understand that. And I think that there is some validity to that for sure. Do I think that it's as simple as that? No, I don't. I don't know how we as a community can really band together to get things done. I know that that's something that I see on Twitter a lot is, okay, we have to work together. Let's get together. Let's try some big movement. And it never actually happens. And I can, there are reasons for that. And I get them. It's a very difficult community to engage, and not because it's through anybody's fault of their own, but when you deal with a very marginalized community, you have to almost fight even harder to be heard, and sometimes there's just no energy for that. So it's like this double-edged sword of discrimination and ableism that kind of happens. But yeah, it's difficult to know where to go and how to go, and yet in the interim, our healthcare across Canada, certainly in Ontario, but across Canada, is failing. We're in the middle of this pandemic that we're about to let loose on, and yet there's another reason to not worry about the poor disabled anymore. And I mean both senses of the poor, and I put quotation marks around that. Again, it's like this other example of bigger fish to fry. And one of my main thing that I said last night was, this needs to get off Twitter. And that's actually some feedback that we've gotten specifically from reporters. They've told us, we've gotten feedback from 3 or 4 different reporters who we talk with regularly, and they said, don't just constantly tweet us on Twitter, because we don't listen and we may not see it, and we get so many tweets that it gets lost, and also it can be really annoying sometimes. They always said the best way to get our attention is to email us or call us with a pitch. And a pitch should be, one reporter said, a pitch should be in the format of, this is the issue, this is who it affects, and this is the outcome that we want from that. So, and most of them want personal stories. So you also have to know your reporter. You have to know the reporters that do want the local slant, and most reporters who will do stories want that local slant. But also, when we've told that to people, when we put that out on Twitter, that this is what the reporters are looking for, it doesn't happen. We try to get people to do something a little more beyond Twitter, and we get things like, I don't have the energy, I don't have time. And those are all very valid reasons, don't get me wrong. But again, it goes back to that idea of, it's been very difficult to get people together to actually get up and do things.